Two Phoenix Suns in the NBA All-Star game. Not enough to get the Western Conference a win. Not enough to make the game saved or even watchable. But nevertheless, we have a lot to talk about from the NBA's premier weekend of the regular season. We'll dive into all of it, plus a Beal update and more on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcasts. A big thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Sunday night, Monday morning, post-game after a 211-186 win by the Eastern Conference in the NBA All-Star Game. I'm shrugging, and you can hear my incredulousness as I say that, but wherever you are, whenever you are finding us, thank you for being here. Hit follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We are free everywhere and available everywhere, including YouTube. So just hit that button, get a new show in your feed Monday through Friday all season long. Become an everydayer. Tap into the team, get locked on to the Phoenix Suns all season long right here on this show. Joining us as he does every Monday is Brendon Dueñas. He is a writer over at Bright Side of the Sun. Brandon, we have a little second half flurry from Booker. He gets 15-7. We have 18-5 from Durant, but the West just did not show up to this game, and it really wasn't competitive. Did you have any takeaways from the action on the court? Booker throwing touchdown passes, Durant getting mad about the lack of defense. I don't know what stuck out to you, but that was a weird and disappointing game, I think, on my end.
Yeah, to me, I think it's just turning out more and more like the Pro Bowl, like as far as how invested I am into this. Each year it just gets less and less interesting, and honestly, if Book and KD weren't in this game, I'm probably not tuning in, to be quite frank. There's some fun moments, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, the East shooting 100 threes is just insane. There's a couple of cool moments, but overall I just thought it was kind of I don't know, just like you said, a little bit of a snooze fest. It was cool to see Book and KD out there, and I thought they went on a couple of runs where they're showing what they could do. But, yeah, nothing too crazy to take away from this outside of it just being nice to have multiple Suns representatives at the All-Star game, multiple guys playing in the same game, so we shouldn't take that for granted. I don't want to dismiss that entirely, but yeah, overall it was just kind of just a little bit of a disappointment. I thought that the Elam ending was a cool idea that they should have tried to bring back, just to add more competitiveness to it, maybe add some more incentives. I don't know what you can really do, but so I can't really complain too much because I don't have a pure solution for it, but yeah, it was a meh.
Okay, I have a question for you, actually, because I did a little bit of a history segment when they both were named to the team a few weeks ago, or when Booker joined KD on the team with the reserve announcement. But do you know the last time the Phoenix Suns had two All-Stars who were not Booker and Chris Paul, because obviously that would be the easy answer, or Amare Stoudemire and Steve Nash? So you don't get either of those. You can try to guess the year if you want, but I will give it to you even if you can just guess who the players were. It's a little bit of a trick question, but it's a fun one. So let me see if you can get this.
Huh. So not Nash. So it was before the Nash Amare era. So I'm going to say...
Well, no, it wasn't before the Nash and Amare era. It was just a year in which both of them didn't make it. So there's one clue for you.
Ooh, is it Nash and Shaquille O'Neal?
Very good guess. It was actually Shaq and Amare in 08-09. I don't know why Nash didn't make the
Nash
game.
Got left off. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Maybe that's a part of Suns lore that I just missed out on. I don't remember Nash missing that, but yeah. So Shaq and Stoudemire get in, and no Nash. But yeah, it's a funny list to go back and look at the times when the Suns have had two guys, just because we've had so many players pass through the franchise in pit stops, just the way that the trades and everything have always kind of worked out, where it's like funny little blips of Jeff Hornacek and Dan Marley one year, where it's like, okay,
and then Paul and Booker both getting hurt and missing the game, and last year Durant missing the game. So it was, there's a lot of stuff where they've had reps and they haven't been there. So that's why I said it's nice to see them both playing. So
Exactly.
Can't get mad at that.
KD back in his rightful West jersey rather than the little adventure he had out east. But yeah, speaking of Durant and Suns history, we had a comment that I think might be the most noteworthy part of this game from a Suns perspective, which was Barkley on the alt cast, where he's calling out the poverty situation in San Francisco and all sorts of nonsense. Talked about Durant and once again took a shot at his leadership. Basically said it has to be booked to step up down the stretch and galvanize this Suns team if they're going to win a championship, because KD is a follower, not a leader. And I'll just what did you think of the comment? It's not the first time he's said something like this, so there was another part of it that jumped out to me. But what was your reaction to just Chuck doing that in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you could tell it's personal between those two. Like he'll try to say it's not, but there's been that little back and forth they had where they've been going at each other for years. So am I shocked he threw that out there? Absolutely not. But yeah, I think him coming to Phoenix too, a place where Barkley was, beloved, and now he's kind of getting that spotlight, and I think that's probably only enhanced it a little bit. And I think Chuck he's like a closet hater where he tries to act like he's a Suns fan, but this dude's always just roasting whatever the Suns do. And like I feel like Shaq's a bigger Suns supporter than Chuck at this point. So I don't know what's going on with him, and then the whole Kenny Smith commentary last night. They're just doing some wild stuff over there. So I thought that comment was not fair to Durant, but also at the same time, just with their history, it didn't really catch me off guard. I'm sure someone will probably ask Durant about it, and we'll have like some type of quote that'll end up on making its rounds on the social cycle. Like by the time this is probably out, so I don't think this is the end of it. I think it's going to probably be some more jabs here and there, and hopefully they can one day squash the beef, and maybe at a Suns championship parade. That'd be a good place to start.
Maybe KD can drop a little line if that happens of, millions showed up when you didn't win it, but I was able to, get it over the hump here, and Barkley won't have much to say there. But the thing I was going to say jumped out to me about this is that Draymond didn't retort back much, right? Because it's like Barkley is Barkley, and at a certain point, they just have to find some stuff to create a cycle of content around on their show. They got a show on Thursday they got to fill. So, he has to kind of set the agenda there. We know how this stuff works. But for Draymond to not kind of push back much was weird to me. But we know how Draymond is. It wouldn't surprise me if he feels kind of similarly. And I don't think there's anything. I get Suns fans being upset that Chuck would say something like that out of nowhere, right? It just wasn't called for. But the Draymond not responding thing leads me to believe that maybe he kind of agrees. And I guess where I come down on this whole thing is I don't know why that's a problem. I haven't read I personally, I wasn't, alive in 1992, but I haven't read the book about the greatness of Charles Barkley's leadership skills. I might have missed it, but it's like that doesn't have to be part of the resume of a great player. You don't have to be yelling in guys' faces and punching Steve Kerr out in a practice like Michael Jordan did, or bullying Pau Gasol into being a winner like Kobe did, or whatever, in order to be an awesome athlete. Like I guess I don't have an issue with it, no matter how true or not true it is.
Yeah, and I think there's different ways to lead too, and I think Durant's more of just a lead by example kind of guy. He doesn't like the spotlight, and honestly, Steph is kind of the same way, and that's why I think him being loyal and staying in one place probably gets him off of that conversation. But there's a lot of greats that have had that same mentality where they're not really they can be demanding at times of their teammates for sure, but they're not extreme vocal leaders. And that's so I agree. I don't think it's a huge deal for Durant not to be an in-your-face type of guy, but I think he's shown multiple times when the stage is brightest that he shows up, and he's had some monstrous games in the playoffs. So I think that's where the whole leadership thing, like who cares? Like, is this guy going to help us win? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Next. Like, I don't really care how it's like all the rest of it's just like content, like you said. And the Draymond thing, it's not like he's on the best of terms with the Suns right now. So I'm sure he probably had some stuff he was probably trying to hold back, if anything. So it's not exactly like, the whole Nurkic thing, them beefing on Twitter. Him coming to the Suns' defense, not something I was going to expect at all, even if Durant's...
Nah, that's fair. I mean, I guess it's just sort of, they Katie and Draymond try to pretend like they're good now. So I guess it's like, if you're good, you'd think you would say something. But I guess to me, you're right. I guess that's a good way to put it is like... Honestly, I will say Katie has been more vocal, and I think some of the body language stuff that we were all talking about, like November, December, I think now that they're winning, a lot of that we call that leadership. Before it's bad body language, now it's leadership when you win, right? And I think he's been much more vocal on the court, at least, than I ever would have thought. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that, and it's a lazy thing to have to to dial everything down to, in my opinion, too, right? It's like, if you don't have anything to say about their defense, which is probably to me what needs to improve, not their leadership, you just make it about leadership, right? Because that's easier to comment on. It's more personal. There's something to get under somebody's skin with, whereas the real issues are a little less sexy. And, it's like, tell me who was the vocal leader on Denver's team last year. Tell me who was the vocal leader on the Bucks the year before that, or 2 years before that, right? It's like, that's not a prerequisite for all this. But we've given it too much time, considering we just said it was kind of nonsense. So let's move on to Bradley Beal, who appears to be ready to go for Thursday. Reset his nose, recovering from the hamstring. But bigger picture, what are our expectations for him if he is healthy heading into the second half? We'll get into that next. First, today's show brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly is your AI writing partner to help you communicate more effectively and efficiently so you can make a bigger impact at work. There's a lot of people. I mean, I write for a living. Brandon is in a similar field. Maybe not the most intimidating to us, although it's never like the easiest thing in the world to communicate effectively and not worry about typos and all that type of stuff. But there's a lot of people who do not do it, and I know it can be very, very nerve-wracking. Grammarly gets the job done for you. Better writing means a stronger impact. 96% of Grammarly users report that Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. By understanding your writing in context, Grammarly then provides relevant suggestions personalized to you. Their tone suggestions help you navigate even the most difficult work conversations, something like maybe letting somebody go, maybe giving constructive feedback, maybe something like an announcement of some not-so-good news. Whatever the case may be, make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Sign up, download for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast. Easier said, done. All right, Brandon, let's keep it rolling. So, Dwayne Rankin over there at the Arizona Republic reported that Bradley Beal has had a procedure done on his broken nose. They had talked about resetting it. I'm going to go ahead and assume that's all it was, and that he is recovering on track Thursday to play against the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas, and that is the first night of a back-to-back right away Friday in Houston. Not a lot of travel, of course, but I would expect if he can play the first one, he'll play the second one. He's had a week off. The experience with Beal's injuries, I feel like has kind of lived up to some of the worst-case scenarios here, but what do you think of his season so far, and what are you expecting of him if, for all intents and purposes, even the mask is no longer going to be an issue?
Yeah, first of all, resetting your nose sounds very painful, and I do not want to experience it
really
in my
does.
lifetime. But yeah, I think he's had some.
Like, do you go under for that? Do they like? How do you manage that? I don't even really want to think about it, if I'm being honest.
It's just a quick little crack, Just take some ibuprofen, you're fine. But
yeah,
no, I'm sure it's pretty painful. I mean, but yeah, I think a lot of his injuries too this season have been pretty unfortunate. Like that ankle injury, just a freak accident that someone's foot happens to be there, getting absolutely obliterated in the nose. Like there's nothing you could really do about that. The back stuff obviously was something that we were kind of focused on and just thought that could linger. But that's been the least of the worries. It's just been all these random injuries, and then now the hamstring. I think they're playing the Pistons, and it's not really an important game before the All-Star break, so it makes sense. I'm sure if by the way they're all talking, it seems like he's good to go at this point. I mean, before that injury, he was averaging 28, 5, and 5 in his last 4 games. So I mean, he's really starting to get in a rhythm. So it was unfortunate timing, but the All-Star break could not come at a better time. So glad he's healing, getting all that right, and this is really the part of the season where you could really start to rattle off some wins and start to position yourself, build that chemistry. So I think he'll be good to go and ready to roll and pick up where he left off. Now it's just about, knock on wood, staying healthy and getting all these 3 guys as many reps as you can.
Yeah, I think so. This injury would be the only one you would say recurred outside of the back, right? Because this hamstring is the same one that he missed some time for earlier on in the year. I tend to agree it didn't seem significant, but just the fact that it's there enough to miss anything, even if you just miss the rest of that one game, starts to get your mind like, okay, that's still there, but I think he deserves a lot of credit for taking a step back and being malleable and being able to be. We all kind of knew he'd have to be the guy to sacrifice, but that's easier said than done. And so I do give a lot of kudos to him for humbling himself, for doing whatever mentally and physically needs to happen to just adjust that way. And, he's talked about it's a little uncomfortable to take so many threes at times, and he's had to take some defensive matchups, and he's been open about, like, yeah, that's going to have to be me. I get how this works, and he's done all those things. So it's hard for me to necessarily drill down one area that I'm expecting of him down the stretch of the season or something I want to see from him because, like you said, 6 February games, he was 22 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 62% true shooting, 41% from 3. I'll say one easy thing that it's more mental and kind of chemistry based is there's a lot of unforced error turnovers that he coughs up watching him night in and night out for the first time this year. That just it's gonna get more frustrating for the team, for us watching in game 5 of a playoff series than it is right now. Like, that has to be cleaned up. But is there something when you look at his game where you're like, I want that aspect of it to improve or be more consistent for the next couple months until the playoffs?
Honestly, there's just shooting more threes. Like it's a different role for him. So he's it's similar to it'd be like asking Booker to sacrifice and play more of an off-ball role where I feel like he's really rhythm-based. Like he likes to attack the rim, get to his mid-range, and kind of not be ball dominant, but very involved in the offense. So to ask him to not completely, but at times completely shift what he's doing, it's a lot to take on. And I think he's taking it great. Like as far as his body language, like there could be 6 or 7 possessions in a row where maybe he doesn't even touch the ball offensively, and he's not slouching, he's not pouting, he's still running hard, playing hard defensively, and he's taking advantage of the moments he's getting. So I think as a teammate, that's the most important thing. I think if this big three is going to work, it's going to be with him probably sacrificing the most as far as just usage and offensive workload, which to me that's encouraging. But yeah, I think just forming better synergy and playing outside of his comfort zone more comfortably, that's something that's just going to happen over time. So I think with him, Book, and Katie all figuring out the whole no point guard thing, we've seen a lot of turnovers that just feel kind of frustrating, like you said, which come playoff time could kill them. That's really the only thing that stands out. Defensively, I think he's been awesome. Like he's exceeded expectations, I think, for most Suns fans. Obviously, he's not like some shutdown defender, but he's a lot stronger. And when he's engaged, like I think he's really proven some people wrong on that end. So as long as he keeps it up on that end, like I really have nothing else outside of just like you said, just cleaning up some of those turnovers and little things.
Yeah, I think I'm a little lower on his defense than you seem to be, but I would just say like the fact that they've now gotten Royce O'Neal to me and that they got Grayson Allen and that he's fine. I think that puts less of a spotlight, or it makes it less necessary for Beal to be consistently great on defense, so that helps. But yeah, I mean, there have definitely been some individual matchups that have impressed me, that have surprised me. Guarding Zion in that Pelicans game, which I still think is one of their better wins of the season, and moments where he's forced some turnovers or gotten in passing lanes. Like I think he's a good enough team defender and somebody where in a switch situation can guard up better. Those two things I think have fared better than I thought, but he still doesn't really get through screens. If you're asking him to guard point of attack against a real threat, I don't think that's going to go well. But there's only so much you can ask, right? He is who he is. So, yeah, I guess to me it's just, can we see those huge scoring nights, not more consistently, I guess, but just can those continue against tougher competition? Is he good for one or two 35-plus point games in each playoff series? Because if that's the case, I mean, their offense has been basically neck and neck with the Clippers for the best in the NBA since they got healthy. So even with the inconsistencies, quote unquote, that we might say about Beal, they've been pretty much unguardable anyway. So you're talking about can he take them from unguardable to almost an automatic win once or twice in a series, and that really starts to add up. I think that's kind of it for me, but that's not really in the regular season. That's more of a down the line type of thing. So yeah, maybe I just default to, hey, let's see the chemistry click better. Let's see it just look more fluid and easy than it does right now, and that would probably lead to those bigger nights. Let's close out the show looking at Devin Booker's signature sneaker release. The first batch of book ones going on sale, selling out within minutes, including more quickly than a Jordan release, which is pretty cool, and some fun stuff we saw around Indianapolis this weekend as Book really celebrated the release. We'll get to that all next. First, today's show brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. Starting with the 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone and messing with layers of attachment and everything else. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. In addition, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, Brandon, let's close out the show. So, Book released the first colorway, the first release of his Book 1 sneaker this past weekend. And not only that, they sold out in hours. He also did a few things with Instagram Lives and whatnot where he was able to hide some stuff or string it up over not a literal phone line, but some little area, and kids and fans were able to go get them. And he did the 1995 All-Star Game throwback colorway for the All-Star practice. What was your favorite element of how Nike and him were able to kind of collaborate to use this weekend as the launching point for what I think some people have been a little frustrated with in this whole release process.
Yeah, there's a lot of like cool little things I thought they did, like the whole library thing, just as the backdrop for that first commercial, and then, like you said, the 1995 All-Star Game in Phoenix, paying homage to that is cool. Like Book's always been paying homage to like the people before him, and I think just how much he's embraced like former Suns legends has been awesome. Just, and that's not anything new. Like he's been doing that since he was a rookie. So I think it was a really cool touch to add that, and then also, like you said, leaving the pair of shoes in a random alley for some fan to go grab. I'm sure there's probably hundreds of people trying to fight for that, but yeah, I thought there's some cool stuff, but also like the frustration of it getting sold out in minutes, and a lot of people that couldn't get it, and some of the color options. Like I know, like people have to understand one thing, and like Book was frustrated about some of it too. Is like it's outside of his control with a lot of this stuff. It's just not really how it works. Like you can't, but I think the fact that it sold out as fast as it did is a good start, and I think it's going to show that the demand is 100% there. Let's get some more colors, let's get some more options in stock, and just keep this thing rolling, because I think there's something cooking here, and I know there's a lot of frustration with my Twitter feed was either people saying, like I'd say like 1 out of every like 10 people saying that either they got them, or the other 9 saying they're pissed off because it was sold out. So it's outside of his control, and he's voiced his frustration, so just relax a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's all out of his control, but I mean, I think the marketing stuff and the timing and the communication of all of it, it is out of his control. I think it's a little more reasonable to get frustrated by, because it's not always that way.
Yeah.
The selling out is always that way, right? So it's like, at that point, you're kind of just getting mad at like sneaker culture and stuff, and it's like, well, it is what it is. What are you really gonna? You want him to sell worse because then he'll get less money, and you're not supporting your favorite player as well. So okay, it kind of is the nature, supply and demand, scarcity, all those good economic things, but. This might sound over the top or like forced a little bit, but it's really not. And I was thinking about it before the game sucked tonight, before we talked in the first segment. But it is similar to me, the way that he's releasing this and the care that he's taking with it, to what I think people are wanting with the dunk contest and the All-Star game and everything else. And Jaylen Brown doing the dunk contest this year kind of spoke to some of that. It does just kind of take caring at this point. Like, you got to just decide it matters with some of these things. These guys are filthy rich in a way that they've never been. Book doesn't even need a signature shoe to have his family taken care of for generations, right? Like, it's a perk. It's nice. It lasts longer than your NBA career lasts. Like, I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm not downplaying the achievement of it. But it's like a lot of guys, it just comes and goes. There's a lot of these we don't remember. There's a lot that don't sell well. There's a lot that the scarcity and all the little tricks they play don't even work, and people don't buy them, But it's like, if you actually take care of it and want it badly enough and do a cool commercial and do things in Indianapolis and, create these colorways and give them to your guys around the league and all the things that he's done, it's like, well, then that's how you get this outcome where it matters and people are paying attention to it and it does sell well and it is generating hype and everybody's excited around the league in terms of players and fans and other Nike athletes and everything else. Like, he's doing it the right way, I guess, is my point. And it's cool because, again, it's not always that way, even though some of the other dumb things about the industry, like I said, those are always that way. But the part he can control, I think he's nailing.
That's a great observation. Like, I think a lot of, and look, I'm not going to blame him for doing it, but there's dudes that will just go get your money, like it's fine, but they're just kind of like, they'll show up for a commercial shoot and then never kind of get involved in it again. Like, they'll just let the marketing department do their thing. It's just more like out of sight, out of mind. It just adds to their checklist of things to do. But you could tell that there are like the select individuals who really do care about the product, the fans, the legacy it leaves behind. So I think we've seen that from Book, and that's authentic. Like, you can't fake that. So I think not everyone does, like you said. So I think it's cool to see how much he cares. But yeah, at this point, I think fans just gotta be patient and kind of let the whole process play out, which I know we live in instant gratification society right now, so patience does not exist, but I think this is just the beginning of something super special, and I'm excited. I didn't get one when it was released. I didn't even try because I knew it was going to be sold out. I'll probably just wait for a colorway that's a little more, my style, I would say, like before I go in on it, but
yeah, but you're right. I mean, look, it's like, if it goes well, Katie's at 16, so we'll all get our chance. I think if we want these, it's like half of these ones are getting bought just so people can say they bought the first release, and again, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the bigger picture of it all, it's like, it's funny to me, it's all across sports, it's all across everything, but it's so cliche now to be like, I dreamed of this when I was a kid, and it's so cool to be here, and then it's like, well, then act like it, you know what I mean? And it some of this stuff can lose its meaning if you don't make it have meaning. So I do appreciate, and I didn't think anything else would happen. I mean, he's a basketball nerd, you know what I mean? He's a fan of everything about this whole experience, and I think that's part of why we all gravitate toward him, but it's still cool to see it come together. But that will wrap us up for the day. More to come this week. No games until Thursday, but more content on the way. Hoping to have Stephen Perjone from PHNX and Bright Side of the Sun on the show. He was in Indianapolis. I haven't even asked him that yet, so I don't think he listens, but if he does, that's kind of a weird way for the invite to be thrown out there. Either way, hope to book him and get some more Suns chatter as we get ready for the second half of the season. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you are finding our show, and I will catch you along the way.